Good afternoon, everyone. We'll get started here in just a minute. We're going to wait for a few more attendees. It's like we're right at 1 o'clock, but we're going to give it just one more minute or so. Thanks. Okay, Chris, you're on?
I am.
Good. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Scott Patton with ABG Retirement Plan Services. Thank you very much for joining us today in this webinar, Prospecting Growing Your 401k Business. This is actually the second in a series of webinars that we've done with Chris Barlow on building a successful 401k practice. The first one a few months ago was on creating a business plan. And if you'd like that, or you'd like a replay link for that, you can reach out to us and we'll get that over to you. You can contact Chris or myself and get that information. The information from these or for these webinars actually supplements an online workshop that Chris has created called the 401k Sales Champion Workshop. We at ABG partnered with Chris a little over a year ago now to be able to offer this program to the financial intermediaries that we work with. And we've also set you all up, everyone who's registered through yesterday, anyone that's registered, I've got you set up with access to this workshop. And again, it's free. ABG pays for that. It's a fantastic program with information that can really help anyone working in the retirement plan space, regardless of experience. So I'll get that out to you at the end. But today, Chris is going to start out walking us through his process on prospecting for 401k business. And then I'll briefly discuss one of the specific prospecting tools called the B3 report that we use at ABG with our advisor partners. And then, of course, as I mentioned, I'll give you the website and the login information for the workshop where you can get more information. So with that, let's get started. Wanted to remind you, I think we've got everyone in listen-only mode. If you have questions, you can type them into the chat feature as we go, and we'll address those at the end. So I'd like to introduce Chris. Chris Barlow is founder and managing director of KnowHow 401k. He's been active in the group retirement plan marketplace for over 35 years, working as an advisor, sales trainer, wholesaler, national sales manager, and strategic director within some of the top companies in financial services. He's co-author of two books, 401k Sales Champion and How to Build a Successful 401k and Retirement Plan Advisory Business. And then, of course, he's produced the 401k Sales Champion Workshop. Chris has really been a great partner for us here at ABG. His experience, his insight, and really his passion for the business has been invaluable to us as we look for ways to better serve the advisors that we work with at ABG. So with that, I'll introduce Chris, and you can go ahead.
Scott, thank you very much. I appreciate the kind words. In 35 years, I've gotten the opportunity to work within and for several organizations. And those of you that are working with ABG, they have a depth of resources that are second to none for amongst record keepers out there. I've gotten the opportunity to work with many of them over the years, and their desire to work with financial advisors and help them to develop their business is just absolutely second to none out there, as I said. So, Scott, just verify for me that you can see my screen. Is that right, Scott?
Yeah, I've got you, Chris. I can see it.
Okay, great. So we are going to be talking about prospecting. Actually, it's growing your 401k business. To me, prospecting is bringing your business plan alive, and doing what you said you were going to do in order to accomplish the goals that you wanted to accomplish. The opportunity that you have here is step number 3. Our earlier webcast, as Scott mentioned, was all about building your plan to accomplish your goals. Now it's time to bring it alive. Future webcasts that we want to share with you will take you through the remaining steps of the 401k 7-step sales champion process. But, when it came to building your business plan, you really were facilitating what I consider to be the keys to prospecting success. Within your business plan, you defined out what expectations should be. Within your business plan, you defined who your target prospects should be. And within your business plan, you defined those goals, those activities. You showed yourself what it was going to take. You enhanced the probability that you would stay in for the long term to accomplish your goals. When it comes to the first key to successful prospecting, good expectations, I have worked with a lot of advisors over the years, and I'm here to tell you, not one of them has ever told me they didn't think 401k was great, that it'd be a great addition to their book of business. But what's most important is to realize is that the vast majority of those advisors didn't follow through on their beliefs of the 401k marketplace. And it's those that have great expectations early on that can stick in the game longer to see the fruits of their labors arrive. In your business plan and our last webcast as well, we reviewed what it takes. It's all based on your goals, not the AUM goal necessarily, but what you were going to buy as a result of achieving your AUM goal, really getting connected with the activities that you need to execute day in and day out. So you derived a $25 million rise in 401k assets over 5 years. You defined your target plan at $2.5 million. So you need to bring in 10 plans over 5 years. That's 2 plans a year, of course. There's 240 total working days in a given year. That's basically 20 days a month, Monday through Friday, 4 weeks, 12 months out of the year, 240. There's over 5 years, that's 1,200 days to accomplish your goals, 5 times 240 days a year. And then I'm a fan of the 10% rule, so that if you want 10 plans, I believe you should have 100 cold prospects in your database. And then we move through the progression of prospect stage. That cold prospects, these are new to the database. You haven't had conversations with them. There's no relationship whatsoever. They don't know you from Adam, those types of qualities. But 40% of those cold prospects over a period of time will appreciate your message, appreciate your persistence, and ask you to come on site and do what I call the discovery meeting. So 40% of your cold will warm up over the 5 years to do a discovery meeting. You're going to publish a proposal, conduct a follow-up sales presentation with 50% of those warm prospects that you held a discovery meeting with. It's what I term hot prospects. And then you could have a 50% close ratio, which I know improves with age, so to speak, but 50% close ratio just to round out our projections. If you have a 100 lead database, I'm a fan of cycling through your cold prospects every month. And so that's basically 1,200 days, 100 prospects. What you're basically saying is you're making 5 dials a day, each day over 20 days. And that every 12th business day, doing 5 dials a day, so every 2 weeks or so, that's when you expect to have one conversation with a qualified. I know it could happen much quicker than that, the pace, but I want you to get expectations in check, so to speak. Of those 100 cold, 40% will become warm over 5 years. That's 40 of them, 40 into 1,200. That's a discovery meeting every 30 business days with one of your 40 warm prospects over 5 years. Half of those warm prospects will ask you to publish a proposal, conduct a follow-up sales presentation. That's 20 over 5 years. 20 divided into 1,200 total days. You're going to publish a proposal, conduct a follow-up sales presentation every 60th business day. That's one a quarter, basically. And then a 50% close ratio of your 20 hot prospects. There's your 10 plans in 5 years. Basically, you're closing a plan every 6 months. 2 plans a year for 5 years. It's the linear progression out there. But what you do in your plan is then write it out into a statement that you know that the way that you judge, the way that you measure a great day from an outgoing prospecting, building my business perspective is simply making 5 outgoing calls a day or 5 touches, 5 drop-bys. There should be a physical connection between you and the prospect out there. That's it. Everything else will come as a result of that. Great week, you process 25 cold prospects. A great month, you cycle through your entire database of 100. You've had 2 initial conversations. Remember what I said? 1 every 12 business days. We just rounded up. 2 initial conversations a month with qualified prospects and conduct 1 discovery meeting with a warm prospect. Great quarter, 3 cycles through the database, 6 initial conversations with qualified, 3 discovery meetings with warm prospects. A great year, 12 cycles through, 24 conversations, 12 discovery meetings, 6 proposals, and 2 closed plans. So now you can set those guardrails of expectations along your highway of the journey of your 401k sales success. I get to talk to the spectrum of advisors on a daily basis about 401k sales success. And the more successful you are, the more choosy you got to be because capacity as well as service consistency become big issues the more success that you have. But I think advisors, no matter where they're at in their 401k sales tenure, I think they need to start and stay choosy with the realization not every prospect deserves to be your client. This is a long-term relationship you're looking for. Your goals are accomplished as a result of retaining plans, not getting them, it's retaining them. And so making sure that it's a long-term relationship, it's a good fit, is a smart way of going about it. Well, how do you do that? Well, in your plan, you define out what an ideal target looks like for you. You have both qualitative characteristics. These can be more difficult to ascertain. There are not a whole lot of databases out there that have a check mark whether or not a company has paternalistic management. You got to get in and talk to the management. You got to maybe talk to people that know the company, what they're about, those types of things. But when I was an advisor, I always wanted to work with companies that wanted the best for their employees because that's what I was offering. And I wanted it to be recognized and demanded. Steady growing employment, the number of folks that are saving with you is your engine, right? Proximity, you're much more apt to get up at 4:30 in the morning to go do the enrollment meeting the closer they are to you. And I actually would go after plans. They made sense all the way around, but I also wanted those that were very visible in the community, not only from a philanthropic perspective, but also from an advertising perspective. I would go after companies that did heavy advertisement on the TV, radio, those types of things, because I wanted name recognition, and certainly paid off. The quantitative screens, total value of the plan, average account balance, cash flow, plans asset allocation. Now you can get this info from public records out there. But it's about building your database and getting your prospects, and those prospects that define, that match your description of a target, where you need to start. And I'm not the first nor will I be the last to suggest this to you, but you really got to look into those current relationships that you have, asking yourself, who do I know? And the first is current clients that may realize you from a high net worth management perspective. You need to also include in that spectrum your ability to help them with their company 401k as well. So maybe just jotting off a note, begin your next conversation with them as well. But otherwise, get that yellow pad in front of you. Take an inventory. Who do you know? Clients, neighbors who are business owners, especially the businesses that are defined as my target. Employee clients who are employees at my target companies. Influencers in the community, other business owners, CPAs who audit plans, third-party administrators, HR consultants, 401k consultants. Some of my best plans were a result of encouraging the plan sponsor to hire a third-party 401k consultant to lead the search. That type of courage to offer that up was very much a distinguishing issue. So, do some time. Take the inventory of who it is that you know. But it's always about relationships. I heard an advisor say it today, that the more involved, the longer he's in his business, the more he realizes how valuable relationships are to his revenue. So to me, you want to focus on relationships, of course, but you also want to have a sense as to how long is it going to take to process this cold prospect into a finished good client, so to speak. And I give you the prospect quality score to help you get a handle on that, again, to get expectations in check, that there's two factors to the prospect quality score. There's the degree of relationship that you have with prospects, and then there's the plan change factor. How motivated are they to move from their current provider, their current advisor? So the highest score relationship factor is when you have the sound relationship with decision makers. The lowest score is when you just have cold prospects, smiling and dialing or cold walking, whatever it happens to be. Plan change factor is the highest score is they're officially searching. It's on the street, RFP, whatever it happens to be, down to 0.25, not considering a move. Well, if you focus on those prospects that have a PQS of 1.25 or higher, these are the higher probability sales that can close soonest. The sound relationship of score of 1, but not considering a move, a score of 0.25, still possible because of the relationship. And the flip side is true too. You could have a 0.25 relationship, but they're absolutely motivated to leave their current advisor or record keeper or whatever. So being in the right place at the right time is what we call that. And based on your experience in sales and probably life overall, you've probably heard of the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle, that 80% of any outcome is a result of 20% of the people type of thing. And they have even broken it down into probability of the sale taking place based on the number of contacts. What we know inherently is that persistence is an absolute factor that you have total control over. There's very few things you have total control over. Your attitude and your activities are the two. And when it comes to attitude, persistence is one of those subcategories. It's when I think about everything that I've been able to accomplish in my life, it is absolutely the result of not giving up persistence. If it was a noble, moral, ethical type of outcome that I was looking to accomplish, nothing gets in my way. One of the greatest compliments that I've ever been paid was when I got that classic call Friday, mid-morning. We were waiting to see whether or not we got word, whether or not we won. The call comes through. We're told that we won. The owner of the company says, "Chris, I got to tell you, you're most persistent person I've ever dealt with. Will you come and talk to my sales team about what it took for you to win this plan?" And it was not only the greatest compliment, but one of the greatest experiences that I've ever had. Persistence, as I said, is that force that you can control to overcome the frustration that you feel when things just aren't happening fast enough. Top salespeople get frustrated because they want things to happen faster. And what they have the ability to do is double down on persistence and stick to it. One of the greatest inspirers that I have is OG Mandino. And I don't know if anybody on this call recognizes OG. If not, do yourself a favor, take a look at his work. He has a wonderful way of talking about persistence and getting it into a very emotional type of level for you to take absolute advantage of it. Scott said each of you have access to the 401k Sales Champion Workshop. The workshop is a video-based, electronic e-tool-based, online 401k sales development program. And it's broken down into those 7 steps as I showed you at the beginning of my presentation. In the e-tool box in step 2, there's several examples of strategic partnership agreements. And I learned the reason why you need to have strategic partnership agreements the hard way. So I give you a couple examples when you have another advisor you're partnering with, or even a CPA firm or other outside. Knowing each other's roles, responsibilities, revenue sharing, what happens if one of the partner exits, those types of things is very important to make sure that you're delivering for the client long term. If you need access to a database, I hope you know you can pick up the phone or send Scott an email. Be as specific as possible with your search criteria. That's why I keep coming back to your business plan and your definition of a target in your plan. I'm okay with using direct mail as part of your acquisition activity. I know the open rate as you do. I know the cost as well as you do. I also think it's used by many as an excuse for not doing what's really ultimately comes down to how you do business with someone, and that's a personal, physical type of connection, whether it's face-to-face or over the phone. But I'm okay with having an introductory letter, a team bio. There's always some sort of calamity, it seems, on a monthly basis within the 401k marketplace, regulations, some other topic of interest that you can drop by them, but nothing ever takes the place of the follow-up call. If you're sending information out to folks without a call, I think it's an absolute waste of money, waste of time. So everything that you mail out should be accompanied by a follow-up call to reference it. And a lot of advisors aren't aware of what I consider to be the most perfect piece to mail out. It's the Form 5500 instructions booklet. And you can just Google Form 5500 instructions booklet and scroll. I think in this example, it's page 81 of the instructions. Could be a little bit further on, but the title is same for the 2017 instructions book, ERISA Compliance Quick Checklist. This checklist, again, is in the back of the Form 5500 instructions. And what percentage of employers do you think read Form 5500 instructions, let alone get to the back of the book type of thing? So the checklist was prepared by the IRS in partnership with the Department of Labor's Employee Benefits Security Administration. And it contains 14 questions, 11 of which, if the employer answers any of them, no, and 3 of which, if they answer any of them, yes, they're instructed to review your plan's operations because you may not be in full compliance with ERISA requirements. So I think it's a great checklist to send out with an introductory message, team bio, whatever it happens to be, but one that surely should get their attention. I always love to present to prospects and clients information from the horse's mouth, the Department of Labor, so to speak. There's plenty of materials the DOL has available for you, no cost. You can order brochures by dialing up the 800 number or just download PDFs. But really great. This Meeting Your Fiduciary Responsibilities brochure, I believe, is a tremendous template for the ongoing fiduciary training you may have as part of your annual service model for your plans. But we all know that they don't read what you send. 3% open rate. What I tell advisors is the best you can hope for is they see your logo in the top left hand and your name hopefully under it, because 97% of the time, man, it's going in the waste receptacle. But it must be followed with a follow-up call. I have an advisor in Maine that I've worked with over the years, and he was a classic, has the database, spent an hour a day calling into it, processed it month after month after month. He told me one day in our conversation, after 6 months of processing his database, he got a little frustrated that 10 of the most ideal plans in his database has not taken his call over 6 months. And although he was prepared for it, a good majority of the plans he had already spoken to, got to initial conversations with them, except these 10. So he isolated them. He prepared what he called Operation FORE-CHECK. And some of you may be hockey fans. You're trying to get in your opponent's face, so to speak, and be very present to them. So he sent them a letter to be received on Monday, basically introducing himself, saying over the next several days you're going to get information from me to help you to better manage your plan. Tuesday received a DOL brochure. Wednesday received a DOL brochure. Thursday received a Starbucks card for a free cup of coffee, and a note on the inside saying, I know that I sent you several materials over the past couple of days. You may need a cup of coffee to stay awake. So Monday, he calls all 10 and got through to 6 of them, right? Very simple process, unique, and that creativity out there, I think, really opened the door. I think it was prepared because he had put a call into him every month for 6 months before, but now he comes out with this very creative idea, and it worked. I like workshops. I think advisors think wrong about successful workshops. They define a successful workshop as how many people actually show up. I think you'll be more disappointed than glad as a result. You need to change that. Think about what workshops really are. It's about multi-touches, multi-promotional opportunities. If you have a great message, that's terrific. If you can deliver to pre-assembled groups, that's even better, where you just show up. But otherwise, work in local experts too and have them invite their clients, their prospects to the workshop. When I was in production, I produced in Dayton, and although Dayton is never going to be known as a metropolis out there, but big enough that Merrill Lynch was the firm I worked with, that they had a 98% penetration of high net worth households. So I was kind of up against it, a young person wanting to grow a retail book of business. So what I decided to do is go about an hour north of Dayton to the town where my father's family was from, thinking I had maybe a little name recognition I could leverage into. But I called it my town. And I got on the radio. I had the stock market report on 2 different radio stations. I taught at the adult night school about financial planning. I went and introduced myself to the owners of the McDonald's, the plumbers, the electricians, the guy that owned the grocery store. My biggest accounts came out as a result of my town, doing something different than just smiling and dialing, supporting it with other types of activities out there. But really the most important thing I think you have to do early on is making sure that you're asking for the right people to speak to. I think a big mistake a lot of advisors make is trying to convert a receptionist into a decision maker. So start with the person that signed the 5,500, but go to their website. Verify who that individual is. There's never been an easier time to get information on the right people to talk to. And that's one of the aspects of verifying your database through this initial round. You're trying to gather as much information before you talk to them. I think that's okay. The first round, don't do it in subsequent rounds. That first round, get that information, verify it, get your database as clean as possible. Every time you add quality information into your CRM, it's like making a deposit into your bank account. It gets more and more valuable every time you add verified data into it. And whether or not it's simply Google or LinkedIn or the company website, anything that you can do to get information to verify what you know is good. Often information from lead databases could be 6 to 18 months old, and things change. In the workshop that Scott gave you access to, at the bottom toolbar, you'll see an icon for the profiling menu. And just a word about the workshop in general. I didn't create any of it to be the way. I created it to inspire you, to help you to know that thousands of other advisors have used its content to build their business as they saw fit, right? So one of the examples of this is this profiling menu. The profiling menu takes you through the entire prospecting flow, from the verification, the speaking to the receptionist to get through, to launching an opener, opening questions, managing objections. So take a look at that next time that you're in the workshop. As I said, it begins with managing that receptionist who you think's sole responsibility is to keep you away from decision makers out there. One advisor in Indianapolis coached me how she goes about turning what could be an adversary into an internal champion, and trying to get information from the individual so that she could best communicate to that decision maker out there, helping her to know that she's calling in order to improve the plan. For all employees out there, what's the best way to communicate with Miss Rogers? What's the best time of day to contact her? Those types of things. It's not only about building your business, but it's about building your brand when you're out there prospecting. It is important, the messaging you're putting out there. It is important, the politeness, quite honestly, that how you proceed with prospects, that all accumulates over time. And your reputation in the marketplace will gain a greater dominance as to your success as time goes on. So it is keeping that in mind, that your words, your actions are all about building your reputation in the marketplace. I was talking to a top advisor recently, and even top advisors get to the point of stagnation, wanting to know where they're going next, those types of things. And he does a lot of exercise. He does the triathlons, and I asked him, I go, is it the equation of a great day for you if you get your exercise in? Oh yeah, he's passionate about it. And I said, well, think about your business that way too. Who are those 20 plans in your area that are really trophy plans for you? Develop that strategy and spend a half hour a day working on your trophy plans, just like you do, physical exercise. This is exercise for your business, keeping your pipeline as full as possible. And I see this article title every now and then. Sure you do too. Everybody hates cold calling. I hate cold calling. But I'm here to tell you it's the most efficient path. I've looked at them all. I've studied them. If you ever want to get into a discussion about which is the most efficient path, be more than happy to do that. But cold calling is not dead, not even a little bit. If it were dead, why are there firms out there willing to sell you a lead for $1,500, $2,000, right? And I'm not as gregarious as I may be coming across the phone to you. There are advisors that put me to shame when it comes to their courage to go door to door to drop in. They're not just dropping into any company in the industrial park. They know who they're going to be knocking on the door of. But I like the efficiencies of the telephone. You may not like cold calling and don't look forward to the rejection, but remember, you're calling strangers, and that rejection could be a little bit less. Scott's going to send you a recording of this webcast. I want you to follow this URL to an interesting article released, I think, earlier this year. And basically, the author's talking about you want to extend the conversation, and you're very capable of doing that. And not only do I believe cold calling is the most efficient path to getting new plans that meet your description of a target, I'll throw that qualifier in there, but I think owners should be the ones smiling and dialing. Your experience is a differentiator in the marketplace. You can control the first impression with cold calling, even when you're leaving the voicemail. When you break it down, the eating of the elephant exercise, often it's a half hour to an hour a day. It's like exercise for your business to keep the pipeline full. And it's a way for you to be able to immediately judge the message that you're sending out, be able to measure it. If there are other aspects of the financial service industry that you can represent beyond 401k, and if the 401k conversation isn't going well, you can pivot to those other type of topics that may be of interest. And even if they don't take your call, leaving that quality voicemail month after month after month imprints your brand and demonstrates your persistence. And persistence is one of those characteristics that decision makers hold near and dear about themselves. And they recognize it in others, and they reward it in others. I think it's a great ally that a lot of us don't look at it. You know, it's because of we don't want to put ourselves out there for rejection. I have another author I've read and been able to witness over the years, a guy by the name of Art Mortell, Mortel. Please take a look at Art Mortell when you can. Just a funny commentator on sales processes. You know, and it's we don't do what we need to do because we think about rejection out there, but you can use rejection to further on conversations as well. He has a point where he likes to use humor to relieve a tense environment. You know, when you're calling up and interrupting that decision maker, you can even use humor to create a relationship with prospects when there wasn't one. And he gives an example. He says, you know, when a prospect is pushing back hard, say to them, you know, I've been doing so well lately. I really appreciate you working me over like this. I haven't had a challenge like this in a couple months. I've been losing my sharpness. I could really use this. Thanks a lot. Can I call you every time I'm feeling good and you can work me over? Well, of course, you don't want to use that, but you know, it's part of building the business. It's out there and it's doing what you need to do to overcome those things, I think, artificially that we put in front of ourselves, not to do what we need to do in order to accomplish our goals. And as we look at the flow process of what we're trying to accomplish, this initial contact, look, we're not going to sell the plan on the initial contact. If that decision maker turns over their multi-million-dollar 401k plan to you on the initial contact, I think that's awesome, but I think the probability of that happening is fairly remote. So what is it that you're hoping to do on this initial conversation? Well, you got all this great data verified. It's like a poker hand. You know, when you're sitting at the poker table, you're trying to figure out how good your hand is, but more importantly, how good the others are. And you can sense that by certain actions that they take, so to speak. Same with the initial contact. You got all this great data verified out there. You're trying to determine whether or not you want to do business with them. It's not about whether or not they should do business with you. You build a database to have 90% of them not doing business with you, right? So you got to get to that 10% that will. That every prospect deserves to be your client. But each additional attempt that you put out there to connect with them is going to enhance the probability that they're going to pick up. There's no doubt about it. The advisor I talked about earlier with Operation FORE-CHECK, he had a decision maker pick up during one of the calls. The advisor went into his opener explaining who he is. The decision maker cut him off about halfway, says, "I know who you are. I get a piece of mail from you every month, and a follow-up call. I wish my salespeople were as persistent with their prospects." And the advisor, thinking quick on his seat, said, "Get used to it. If you become a client, we'll be talking monthly as well." So again, back into the workshop, you'll see within the profiling menu, openers, voicemail messages, questions, statements to overcome objections, everything that you need. So those openers, you're going to see 14 different openers in the profiling menu. It's your opportunity to change the perspective the decision maker has of you being an unwanted interruption to being someone that can offer a solution to an issue they may be having with their company retirement plan. The opener's there to put down the threshold for both of you to walk over and for you to begin to ask the few initial profiling questions to help you verify the data you have and get the insight from decision makers to get the sense as to whether or not you want to continue to move forward with the prospect or not. My favorite opener is one I titled as Humble. And it was the one that carried on conversations longer than others. And being in the Midwest in production, you may not be accustomed to asking people how they are. I do it all day long to everyone. And I waited for them to reply. But I let them know that I knew they weren't expecting my call and I was interrupting them, and I'll be brief. And I told them, for over 30 years, I've assisted employers like them in managing their company retirement plan. And I was hopeful to have the opportunity to discuss with them how I go about my work. Was there the possibility we might have that conversation? And if you can offer more than just the 401k, you may want to have a more general opener. I assist business owners like you with both their company and personal financial needs and goals. What's the most important goal you're working on at this time? And then you have just one opening question that you're leaving for or asking the prospect out there. And here's some obvious ones. I'll tell you my favorite is, what goals are you trying to accomplish with your company plan? Your one opening question, what goals are you trying to accomplish with your company plan? And that's my favorite opening question, because that answer is what you'll be managing with your service model. I can see you at that first annual trustee meeting. When we first spoke, you told me that you were looking to do X, Y, and Z with your plan. Well, that's why we're here, to work on accomplishing those goals. I'm married to a practice manager. If any of you are going after the medical, legal industry prospects out there, you may have to get through a practice manager. If you're cold calling my wife, you will not get to the ultimate decision maker unless you get through her. So the idea is to treat practice managers as decision makers. Get their insight. They can absolutely let you know whether or not you stand a chance based on a relationship out there. And a lot of folks, advisors, join SHRM, Society for Human Resource Managers. There's a more powerful one, the Practice Manager Association. Check into that locally. MGMA is medical group. They got the LGMA, which is legal group, Management Association, good groups, gatekeepers, if that is part of your target out there. So profiling questions, to me, there's two different types of profiling questions. There are the few initial, and then there are the many discovery. And all of them, or the vast majority of them, are open-ended, because you want the prospect to tell you more than what you're actually asking for out there. So the initial, and I come up with 9. And what I'd strongly encourage you to do is maybe come up with your own. Talk to Scott, ask Scott's opinion. What are his favorite initial profiling questions to help determine whether or not you want to continue to proceed? But the questions that you see here, they're not obnoxious. You know, again, they're there to verify information, to get insight from the decision maker as to their beliefs about their company retirement plan and timing, those types of things. But the ninth question to me is really important. You can compete against anyone. You just need to know the levelness of the playing field. So asking a question like number 9 will also demonstrate another characteristic that decision makers hold near and dear about themselves, and that's courage. A lot of advisors won't ask a question like that because they just don't want to upset things. But decision makers realize that business is done by relationships, whether it's a personal or a business relationship. And I do get asked every now and then from advisors, should I leave a voicemail? And I think, you know, it'd probably take me a nanosecond to reply. Voicemail to me is the way that you get a return on your investment of expended time that it took for you to dial the phone or go door to door, whatever it happens to be. But it's a way for you to get a return on your investment. You have to do it. Here's another link, another article I want you to take a look at. 2 ruinous mistakes advisors make when they follow up with prospects. They actually don't follow up. And what she means there is they let the prospect off the hook. You know, have you had time to read it? No. Oh, well, you know, I'll check back with you, kind of thing, right? And when they do follow up, they aren't creative. And she goes into a couple of examples of that. The additional touch, LinkedIn is a great tool. I use it every day. And what I encourage advisors to do is, first of all, think about your audience. Who's your audience here? If you have a high net worth business that's supplemented with 401k, you may have all your connections in there being your personal clients and decision makers, and having those ongoing articles, compliant approved, coming out about retirement readiness. That could be appropriate. If you need to set up a separate type of group, if you're allowed to do that, where you just have local employers as members of that group, the exclusivity of that, sharing much more focused group benefits, 401k specifically, I think are great ideas. Social media is not going away. This is the homepage for the workshop that Scott gave you access to. There are those 7 steps. We've been focusing in on step 3, prospecting today, and you see the bottom toolbar where the profiling menu is. I'm going to be turning this presentation over to Scott momentarily here. He's going to take you through a prospecting tool that they've had a lot of success with at ABG. But I want you to log into the workshop that Scott gave you access to. And if you want to see more information on the prospecting ideas, log in, watch the videos in step 3, review the e-tools in the e-toolbox in step 3. And what you need to know is that I'm at your disposal. And that's one of the benefits that ABG is providing to you. Anything that I can do for you, I'm standing by. Give me a call, send me an email, and of course, Scott is there also to be with you as well. So, Scott, I'm going to turn the presentation, make you presenter at this time.
Hey, Chris, we did have one question earlier come in. It says, regarding leaving a message, do you change your message each time or do you leave it the same?
Well, my first reaction is leave it the same. I would like to think that you're memorable, but a month has gone by. I think also the consistency of your message is very important, and your message should contain those few words that answer the why you question, and that's all in your value statement. We covered that in pretty good detail in the first webcast. But if you'd like to go into more detail one-on-one, feel free to give me a call or send me an email.
Yeah, that was my thought too. I think the consistency so that they can see that over and over and it keeps you in front of them, kind of like your logo.
Yeah.
Just the consistency across the board makes sense.
Yep.
So,
I think we have a tendency to overthink and
yeah,
just keep it simple.
right, right. Okay. Well, thanks, Chris. One of the tools, like Chris mentioned, that we use here at ABG is called the B3 provider analysis. And I'm going to run through it quick here. I know we're bumping up against an hour, so. But the B3 analysis is fee, service, and investment benchmarking. It's it's a piece that we can run if an advisor gathers a few pieces of information from a plan sponsor. We'll actually run this report, deliver it to the advisor who can present it to the plan sponsor. But we like it. It's a very non-threatening way to offer a plan sponsor something of value and something that they really need to be doing anyway, whether they intend to change service providers or not. So that's probably the biggest thing I like about it. Is just the ease of offering it up. You know, it is valuable to the sponsor. It helps them understand their fees and all that. But what you're looking at, what you should be able to see on your screen right now is the first page, which we can obviously brand for you with your information, your contact information, your logo and whatnot. The next page, the next few pages just kind of explain the report, explain why benchmarking is important, why a plan sponsor needs to be doing it. Walks through the report, the components, different components that make it up, expenses, the total plan cost. This piece surprisingly shows a lot of value to when we've presented it. It really shows the different components. You know, you hear a sponsor say more often than we care to actually, you hear them say, well, our plan doesn't cost us anything. You know, it's essentially it's free. And of course, most of the time that's paid by participants through the investment cost, but it's got that piece. It starts with with their incumbent plan. We've got the assets listed in each investment category with the expenses and any revenue sharing, and then it shows a total. Shows a fee summary of their current plan, benchmarks their current plan through Axis. I don't know if most of you have access to the Axis report through Castle Rock, but it benchmarks, you can see at the top left, their asset value, $1.3 million plan with 38 participants, and then benchmarks it against some 2,000 plans in the Axis database, which is an independent, a third-party provider. This has nothing to do with us. Plans 1.25 to 1.5 million, 25 to 50 participants. So it's just a really clear, easy to understand report. Shows their total fees and where they rank, so to speak. The next section of this shows, again, their incumbent plan on the left and any proposed plan, whether you provide us a fund lineup that we put in. Again, it'll show all the expenses, any revenue sharing that exists, or a lineup that ABG uses. Either way is fine with us. We can plug those in, or both for that matter. Breaks down per participant cost for investment management, for record keeping administration, and then for total plan cost. So it's a side by side. Again, it's easy to understand. It's non-threatening. It's here's your plan. Here's what you've got. And it doesn't always look this good. Obviously, a sample, I'm going to show you one that makes us look pretty good. But even if it's not, even if they're close, it's good for a sponsor to have. Gives a fee summary of the proposed fees, and then benchmarks the proposed fees again. So you'll have their incumbent plan. You'll have a sheet with the Axis report on it, and then you'll have the proposed. So you can pull those and use those side by side. It goes through all the investments of both incumbent and proposed. Identifies, shows the scoring for each of those plans and how we do it, and then again shows them side by side. Total number of funds and average. This is our PAG scoring, by the way, but shows the average scoring of their plan and any bidding providers that we put in there, and breaks it down all by by asset class and each individual fund. So it's really thorough. It's a really good report. Doesn't take us terribly long to run. We can turn these around typically in about a week if we get all the right information. But here's that. And the last section of this that I really want to point out is something that we recently added. The TDF evaluation section is becoming a bigger and bigger deal. You know, I was reading an article this morning that from Vanguard, I believe it was, it reports over half of 401k participants are now invested in a single TDF, and that by 2022, Vanguard at least expects 77% of participants to be invested in a single TDF. So, you know, selecting an appropriate TDF series for a particular demographic and not just plugging any TDF series in is important now and becoming more and more important. And we think it's a differentiator, actually. We're not seeing a whole lot of people doing this yet. But this section of the B3 report is recently added and really good. It goes through all the underlying scores, the risk index, for however many series, target date series we plug in. In this case, there's only 2 of them. Shows the matrix. It shows different glide paths, the glide paths of the different TDFs, and then an industry average, and then asset class coverage and all that. Very thorough, goes through all the underlying funds and their scores and RPHE. So that's basically, and then of course the last is the fee proposal for record keeping and that kind of thing. But that's basically the B3 report. Again, we can run those for you if you can get us the information. We're happy to do that. We do it all the time, and we've had a lot of success doing it. I think it's just helping a plan sponsor understand what they're actually paying, and shocking actually to me how many of them don't understand that. So, and then the last thing we have for you today, the access information for the workshop. Here's the website. It's up on the screen. For KnowHow401k.biz. .biz is the website. Use your full email address for the username, which is the email address that you use to register for this webinar, and then the password gross sales. And like Chris said, I'll email you the replay link for this webinar. I'll email you that sample B3 that I just ran through, and then I'll send you the website and your workshop credentials again. So you should have all that in the next day or so. And that's it. That's all I have. Again, more information, you can contact Chris or myself anytime. We really appreciate your time today, and have a great day. Thanks.